All right, we are live. JT, man, how you doing today?
Good as always, man. Even on my bad days, you feel me?
Hey, the sun sets only to rise again, ain't that what they say?
Huh? Hey, no matter what, the sun always rises and sets in the exact same spot. I don't know what that means, but yeah, if you're listening, maybe you can tie that to some part in your life.
I'm pretty sure it sets at a different spot every single day because of the solstice, though.
Wait, you been serious? I
Yeah,
just
like when
meant,
I go
I
to the
just meant,
beach.
I just meant, you funny as fuck. I just meant in the east and in the west. It rises in
Oh,
the east
okay,
and
okay,
sets in
okay.
the west.
Man, I was really debating, like,
Like, bro,
something happened.
I don't know exactly where the sun is every day when it's set, bro. That'd be something. Jesus.
Nah, I'll be
All right,
watching it.
what we talking about today, man? Because
Fuck me. Say no, I'm just playing.
this one's coming straight off the dome for me today, guys. So
Spark Notes, aka is what do you mean? Not even. But so today we're
fuck
doing.
no, Spark Notes would have been a blessing. No,
That's why
this
I
is
said
coming
not
off the
even.
dome. Hey, I saw my Harley buddy. You know, fellow biker over here. Oh man.
Bro, that's hilarious. So today we're going to be doing a book analysis of one of my favorite finance books. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 9 out of 10 just because of the timing, and it really peeled the curtains back on like this was a book to where, like, before I read it, I thought the dollar was going to fail here pretty soon. It was actually recommended to
Oh,
me
you
by
were
my
one of
cousin Martin.
those.
We all were one day, man. We all
No,
were.
I was never one, bro.
So
I
you
wasn't,
always for 100%
bro.
sure? Oh, let me ask you a
Bro,
question. Let
go
me ask
ahead,
the
go ahead,
question, bro.
go ahead, go ahead,
You
go ahead.
always knew the dollar was gonna last, always, before you even got into finance, bro.
Bro,
Because I
before I
remember
got
us
into
having
finance,
conversation.
no. Before I got into finance, didn't even think about the dollar lasting or going. When I got into finance, I still didn't think about the goddamn shit. It's when I started to understand it better. Why was your pinky out so hard, bro? Come on,
Because I'm just sip my tea to that bullshit. That's why.
man. So fucking what was that? Oh, bro, from the beginning, bro, I was saying, bro, I can't see a scenario in which the dollar goes away. I literally, that's how I started off. I can't see it. I literally can't see it. And I remember almost giving in, saying, like, even if it does, we got like another 25 years. This was back when we were talking with like Tanner at like 6106, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Don't
yeah,
give
it's
people our address. They might be able to track it to where we at. Say, no, I'm just playing.
they gonna see some bullshit if they go there now. I don't know what's over there. But yeah, man, you know, I never thought the US dollar was going to actually fail. At some point in the future, maybe like fucking an unfathomable time frame. Yes, because it seems inevitable. But while we're alive, no, I think the US dollar is still gonna be here when I'm fucking 97. And I'm like, yeah, hand me that dollar bill off the table.
Yeah, probably ain't gonna be no cash by then.
Like,
But
man, like, granddaddy, why you need a dollar? I like to keep things simple. That's how I'm gonna be. Anyway,
well,
let's get it, man.
we didn't all have that assumption. I know I didn't. So yeah, I definitely recommend this book. Whether if you're a beginner or advanced, it like talks about how the Federal Reserve works, how the financial system works, how money works, and it talked about money in a different way, and it really helped me just understand things better. You know, I like to look at reading books that's like Mining for Gold. Every book has a few nuggets. This one had a lot, and you know, you get
I
those
agree with that.
dots, and you get those dots, and then you just connect them. Like in order to connect the dots, you got to get the dots first. So this helped me build up a lot of dots that helped me connect them when I read other books like Big Debt Crisis by Ray Dalio and stuff like that. So I got some good notes here on the book, about a page and a quarter, so not too long, but it's good quality stuff here. So we're going to read these off and we're going to elaborate on the points. So a bank takes deposits from a user and they loan it out to other people. Say, no.
I was about to say, man, oh my god, bro, what is this?
Hey, if y'all been watching our other book reviews, y'all get that joke. It seems like that's all. It's the first thing I write down.
Woo, that's crazy. That's funny, man. That
All
shit
right.
really had me going, bro. I was about to say, oh my God.
All right, here we go for real. The plethora of items, beautiful seashells, iron, ignots, even slaves, that can be money.
Ingots.
Ingots, that can be money, all because of a sovereign's tax demands. Did you want to take this one away first?
Yeah, so I guess this is like, man, he went way back. So I'll start off at the beginning of money. 5,000 years ago, and of course I'm paraphrasing. This is real, by the way. I'm paraphrasing, so you guys do your own research on this, but I'll send you in the right direction. 5,000 years ago, we had our first like documented iteration of money. Mesopotamia. I forget exactly which commodity they use, but that's like our first like documented experience with money. And so you
5,000
could,
years ago, is that BC times? Yeah,
I think so.
it
Yeah.
has to be. Yeah,
We
okay,
had
okay.
it. It's like even before that, my assumption would be like we had iterations of money before that. You can't have human connection in an extended way without some type of currency or money in the middle. You really can't.
I was listening
Money.
to that. I was listening to that Lynn Alden Bankless podcast, and she was saying how, like, even on the hieroglyphics, it was like basically it was evidence of banks back then, and like even in the
Oh
book of
damn!
Deuteronomy.
I didn't even catch that actually.
Yeah, in the book of Deuteronomy, it was talking about like borrowing and lending. So it's like money goes like it's
Oh
like one of the
wow.
first
Yeah.
things that she
Yeah.
said.
No,
Yeah, but go ahead.
I didn't even think about that. I mean, I didn't hear that. I probably was being a dad at that moment. You know, I'm
I'm
always
sure some stuff I
multitasking.
didn't hear too. It was pretty
Yeah.
dense. I'm gonna listen to it again.
But yeah, man, no, that's crazy. So yeah, that was an assumption. But just because Lynn Alden said it, now I think it's true because the woman does the research, guys. Go watch her if you haven't yet. But anyway, so yeah, my assumption was that it would be money or some iteration of money before the Mesopotamian times. And through that, you have an extension of like social connection. And so if we go through like what money is, some people would say it's a lot of people would say it's a social construct. That's how they would start off. It's a social construct, but it's a lot that goes within that. Literally what I just said, I think is just 100% true. A social construct in that. Think about the more money that we make, I'm just meaning you and I, the more money we make, like our better years in terms of income, think about how much of a correlative that is to your network and how your network also grew that year. You know what I mean? And you could think about that on a massive scale. Like you got, like, let's take an entertainer. Entertainers, outside of what they do to entertain, usually have, no offense to you entertainers, but most of them have no other value, really. But still, because they were able to amass wealth, you see their connections go through the roof as well. So now they seem a lot smarter. They can pretty much do anything they want because of the wealth that they've accumulated, because they have so many more currency units to extend their social connections than the average person. And so they're just well connected. And so you can look at it that way. Now, where the sovereign tax demands come in, obviously, the place in which you live, your city, municipality, whatever you call it, they need some way to generate capital for the state. Now, that could be for infrastructure, that could be for whatever, right? That could be for corrupt purposes, whatever the reason is, they need to generate revenue, capital, some way. The way to do that is taxes. And so I'm trying to remember what he said, because I'm trying to make sure I keep tying it in. But he started talking about shales, basically different types of commodities. So whatever that commodity is, whatever the most used commodity is during that time, if it was seashells or whatever, the tax would be paid in that commodity, like we do now with our legal tender, which is the US dollar. So that's what he meant on that point. And also it was like a definition of money, what money is within that point. So
yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. If I had anything to add, is basically there has been a lot of forms of money. People define money as a medium of exchange, store of value, and unit of account. There's been a lot of things to try to serve those purposes. People set on gold because of its properties. It hit like most of the things that in order to make it a good quality money, the visibility, portability,
scalability.
Yeah,
I said
like
not scale. It doesn't. I don't think scalability is one of those. Divisibility, fungibility, portability,
verifiable, durability. Yeah, all these things. And like seashells, iron ignots, or however you said that, slaves, which is crazy. It's harder to do all those things. And in this book, they talk about how they define money as a promise. And we'll get into
Yeah,
that later.
yeah.
But
So actually, no, that's good because I would actually separate money and currency. So currency, you can look at more of as a medium of exchange. Money, you can look at more of as a store of value, and in some cases, a unit of account. But currency itself will be a main unit of account and a medium of exchange, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a store of value. So we use the US dollar. Now, would you consider the US dollar a store of value? Maybe foreign countries would, but would you? No, probably not, because you literally lose your value over time.
I think of foreign currency. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
so
it's not as
money,
much as other ones, though. But yeah, still true.
yeah, 100%. And and so money and currency has like circulatory effects. Money, that's more like gold and like hard assets, in which you could have a store of value, and it could be a unit of account, but it's probably not. So that I would separate the two. And so money could be looked at as more of a promise in that, look, this fiat system is riddled with devaluation. It's inevitable that we're going to experience currency devaluation. And so that promise of purchasing power protection would be money or the hard asset. So that's how I would classify it. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I should have got Martin to jump on this. I feel like he'd have been good.
Who's Martin?
My cousin Martin. He's the one who recommended me the book.
Oh, is he like
He's like deep in economics now. He really took a turn. Yeah.
That's what's up. Hey, that trip must have helped your boy, man.
Must have.
I saw your huh?
No, what were you gonna say?
No, I saw your brother post a picture from that not too long ago on IG from that day.
Oh, really?
Bro, that was like an 8-hour like hike, bro.
Oh, that day. I said on the ice, and you said, yeah, it was no ice.
Oh, I thought that was code for something.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I just thought that was cool. That was a good memory, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So last thing I'll say on that point is like the purpose of money was to like it was a solution to bartering and trading. And it was that middle ground. Like if like let's say I needed some salt and all JT had was cows, he can't cut the cow's leg off. He can't, like, what if I don't want a cow? Like, what if I just, given that he has to give me the whole cow, I have to give him like all of my salt. And what if I don't give him all my salt? So it's like, I have to give him something that he's deficient in that I'm not, and then vice versa, and the other way around. So money serves the purpose of like quantifying how much these different things are worth so that you can exchange them without giving up the resources that you still want to keep.
Yeah, so I learned this in a book called Sacred Economics years ago, Tragedy of the Commons. And I heard Lynn Alden talking about this on that same podcast as well. I forgot the term she used, but it's essentially the same thing. Like if you have a cow and I have a bunch of salt, like you said, and you need the salt, but I don't need the cows, how will we complete that transaction? Well, we need some like universal form of payment to transact with each other to create an economy between you and I.
Or do something inconvenient and go trade it for something else to like you're like double bartering. You have to go
barter for something else and come back to it. I just give you the salt like a dumbass and say, you know what, man, here, take my big ass bag of salt, man. Keep the cow. And that next thing you know, I need some damn salt. And I'll probably figure out I need some beef a week later. And it's like, fuck.
Nah, got shit. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. So let's go to the next point here. So money is anything which the state undertakes to accept at its payment offices, whether or not it is declared legal tender between citizens.
Yeah, we kind of just talked about that. I would separate the two. I would say that's more of the currency, because money and currency is just different to me, and when it comes to collecting taxes, they're not about to sit here and collect taxes. Man, would our government accept gold? Like, can we pay taxes in gold in America?
I don't know.
I wonder, but I don't think we can. Because
I doubt it.
Yeah, that's the money or hard asset. So they're not taxing the money. They're taxing the currency. Now, even though in the real world, currency and money, it's the same thing when we think about it in our regular everyday life. But just for the sake of this conversation, it's kind of abstract, kind of in a way philosophical, but based on facts like anything. Yeah, money and currency, they're different. Like when you really get into the weeds and you start thinking about it, currency has to be a medium of exchange, and a unit of account, but it doesn't have to be a store of value. Money doesn't have to be a medium of exchange or unit of account, but it has to be a store of value. So that's just how I look at it. So I would like, yeah.
Another thing I would say is like they were talking about in the book, like if you go to like let's say you go into the Federal Reserve and try to pay your taxes, like people, okay, the context is different.
And try to pay your taxes.
The context is different, or like wherever you go to pay taxes. The concept is different for like the United States and like other places or other countries. But as a general rule, people think that the government always wants to raise taxes to increase income, but it's like the government is in debt with the Federal Reserve, who prints money. So it's not always to generate income, but it's to regulate the supply and demand of the currency. So it's like going back to crypto. And I think we talked about this on another podcast before or episode. You want to be buying
and
crypto.
The reason they're in debt, just to clarify that sentence, the reason the government or Congress would end up in debt with the Federal Reserve is because of debt monetization by the Federal Reserve. Meaning, let's take the Treasury, for example, during times like we had over the last decade, in which we saw the Fed buy up most of the bond issuance from Congress, that put effectively Congress in debt to the Federal Reserve to the tune of over $5 trillion. Now, that relationship it's always finicky. It's like, damn, do they have to pay them back? And I guess we'll figure that out as time goes on.
Yeah, so it's not always to like generate income, it's to regulate the supply and demand of the currency to keep it scarce. Because if you have a currency, like we always hear about hyperinflation, that's when they print too much money and it's not demand for that money. So the value of it goes down, because as the value goes down, more people are selling it, and it's just like a cycle. So just like when you're buying a cryptocurrency or a crypto asset, as I like to call them, you want to be buying something to where the inflation is decreasing, or if you have units being burned, so that it's taking the asset, it's taking units out of supply. And it's the same exact thing with taxes. Taxes is a way to suck money. Taxes and interest rates are a way to suck money out of the system via increasing the debt and making the currency less scarce, so that purchasing power goes up, so that inflation comes down.
Yeah, so just like this is kind of going to be a crypto warning. So when you give your government money, the hope is it doesn't all go to like paying off interest expense on debt or whatever it may be. You want them to produce something with the money you're giving them as well. And so they produce infrastructure, usually it's infrastructure, maybe help on the on the state medical side or whatever it may be. You know, you want them to put that money towards something that ends up increasing the quality of your life. Now, this is kind of a crypto warning. On the crypto side, when you're looking at these projects, be careful, because a lot of projects, a lot of the value comes from their inflation or burn rate. Now, you want to make sure, even if they have a nice burn rate, you want to make sure that they generate value or yield by some other like real metric, by producing something that increases value to you, whether that's a yield farming product, some type of utility you use, whether it's an Oracle network like Chainlink, whatever it may be.
As a general rule, just to like piggyback on that to help people understand like real yield, in traditional finance, is three main ways that you can generate yield: facilitating borrowing and lending fees, facilitating trades on exchanges through market making, and insurance premiums. It's the same thing with crypto. Everything else outside of that, especially right now in its early ages, is like JT said, it's paying people in rewards that are from that project's actual token. So it's not real yield.
Right.
It would be like Apple paying people Apple stock to buy its phones or to do something within the company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more they're paying out,
or
that causes
then they just stop
and the
making
prices drop.
phones. Or they stop making phones and they buy back their bro. Whoa, I wrote down some numbers the other day. Sorry guys, I'm getting a little sidetracked. But Apple, they're sitting on $167 billion in cash, right? And if they were to just earn yield on that money, like 4%, bro, that's $7 billion a year. They literally can do nothing, make with products for the rest of the life of the business and remain a profitable company just based on their cash reserve yields. That's insane, bro. That's
Bro,
actually
imagine if
super
they bought
insane.
short-term treasuries right now and they're getting that 5% a month.
I was thinking that. It's like, bro, what the fuck, bro? That's insane. This is 4% a year, 5% a month. Bro, that's actually crazy. But anyway, yeah, I just this is really crazy. It's like that's a lot of fucking money, bro.
More of the
Like
story, you guys.
I would love to be an Apple executive. Like, bro, hey, let's just stop selling the products.
More of the story, you make a couple $1 billion, you can stop because it's easy to make money.
Yeah,
Right, no.
literally, no, for real.
I mean,
No
I was
joke.
saying it like more of the story, like it was so easy. Obviously,
I know. Yeah, they're not going like, yeah.
Well, don't hoe our audience. Say no,
bro. I can say that they're not gonna make 167 billion. If they get mad at that, I'm like, bro, shut your ass up, bro. Jesus Christ. Damn, man, that's a lot, bro.
that's actually pretty funny. All right, so this next point we actually just hit. I just kind of touched on it, talking about like how taxes are used as a way to control supply and demand of a currency. So it says taxes don't have to be there in order for the government to spend. The money is always issued fresh. Taxes mop up money to avoid over issuance / inflation.
I like the way he explained that, actually.
Yeah. Would you add anything?
So, no, I would just like clear it up a little bit. So, like, what he's saying is, in order for our government to spend money, they don't have to get your money. They don't have to tax you. Exactly. We can print it through the Federal Reserve. Now, one of the usage of taxation will be to dampen the effects of that previous money printing that just happened. And so let's say if we increase the money supply, and these are very simple numbers. If we increase the money supply by 4%, and then we collect the equivalent amount of taxes, whatever that number would be, on the flip side, it will just like cancel out that money printing episode, essentially. And so, yeah, it's used to mop up the inflation dangers that would have happened if the Fed just printed with no counteraction through taxes by the government.
Yeah, it's almost like throwing water on the floor and just mopping up some of it.
Yeah, basically.
Pretty much. All right. Next point. A government has to spend the money it issues into the economy or authorize private banks to issue it. Before we can pay taxes in that money, what happens is a circular flow. Dollars are continually spent into existence by federal spending and bank lending. They're then pulled out of circulation by federal taxing and borrowing, parentheses, sales of treasury securities. Dollars are constantly being created and destroyed in hopes of keeping the right amount of money in circulation. Kind of summed up what we just talked about again.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounded like what we just said.
All right, cool. Next one. If $1 trillion in promises are spent, it won't necessarily be inflationary if it summons available resources and creates new goods and services. With new goods and services created, we won't have too much money chasing too few goods.
Few goods, yeah.
Yeah, so he's basically saying like money is only inflationary if it's printed and it's not put to good use. And I feel like we've talked about this in a few book analyses.
Yeah, I was gonna say we talk about this quite often.
Yeah, so just to like bring it home, if this is your first time listening, if you print money and a business borrows that money and he gives someone a job and he creates productivity in the economy, puts food on someone's table, like that's like real value. And then he takes the profits and he pays off the loan, that was good use of the money. But if businesses, and a lot of corporations are doing this now, if they borrow money and then it goes into asset markets, you know, yeah, you can justify, oh, they're helping the company by giving them liquidity, but it's not actually helping people. Like it's basically like widening the wealth gap if you look at it that way, because it's helping the executives. By doing it that way, all you're doing is creating bubbles and people aren't making more money, and that's how inflation happens.
New money, no production equals inflation.
Indubitably. All right, next one. Money is a credit and debt relationship. Tangible items are just accounting devices. Currency or cash is not money, but a mere representation of a promise.
Yeah, that's going like abstract on money, like going back to the social construct. You know, as a promise, it's a social contract in a way. When you're talking about currency,
the energy that you did for something that you earned, which is like the promise, like, oh, I promise to pay you for what you did, type shit.
Yeah, what was that first part again? The first point?
Money is a credit and debt
debit
relationship.
relationship.
So it's like you can't have credit
No,
without debt.
the part after that, he said one more thing right after that.
Tangible items are just accounting devices.
Oh, boom. So that one I'm a little fuzzy on as well, because it's like, well, the accounting device would be the currency as it is a unit of accounts.
That's
When
the
you're
ledger though. So is a bank a
Which-
currency? It's like the ledger. They just
which
facilitate it.
still would be an accounting device. A product, no, that's just the value they exchange for the actual currency. Because he's
Oh, I see
saying
what you're saying. Tangible
because
items
he-
are just accounting devices.
yeah, because he's saying the tangible item in which you buy with the cash, right? That's what he's saying. Right
So
there,
I
right?
think he's saying tangible items are accounting devices in terms of like, hey, this is accounting device because this is worth $1.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, I can see why he's saying that. Like I said, I feel like that's more like abstract, which there is no wrong way. I mean, unless you're just totally off base, but he's not. It's like, in a way, you could use it to account for whatever, but really the accounting mechanism of a transaction, even like when you think about a receipt, what's at the bottom? The amount of cash that was spent. Yes, it has the item on there which you bought, or the tangible item. But when the IRS look at your receipts, when you upload them to these little things, like, they're not looking at what you bought really. They're looking at how much you spent. So that way they can delineate how much you fucking owe them, essentially.
And
So
what
it's
I would
like,
say, oh my bad.
No, I was just gonna say that one's hard to, like, I wouldn't say agree with, but it's just hard to think about,
It's easily
my red book
misunderstood.
can.
It's so
Yeah.
like it can be
It's really abstract.
it can mean
Yes.
so many things. Yeah, I get what you mean. If I had to elaborate on one thing, he said money is a credit and debt relationship. So to just break that down, it's like you can't have credit without debt, but you can have debt without credit. What I mean by that is, like, let's say I'm a bank and I give someone a loan. That's credit. So now you owe me back, or you owe me money because I just extended credit to you. And to owe someone is to be in debt to someone. However, you can have debt without credit. So like, let's say I have a guy who comes and cut my grass, but I'm like, I don't have the money to pay you. So I'm in debt to him, but he didn't extend me in credit, unless you want to consider credit as like,
I was gonna say that in a way he
the
did just
energy he
extend
put
you
in
credit,
to,
yeah.
like cutting the grass. So I guess you can say that,
Well,
but like credit
well,
in the traditional sense.
But also because you didn't, it's like, yeah, you're just like, man, that's one of those other abstract things. It's like,
I guess he gave me a credit to cut the grass. So actually, you can't have one
like
without the other.
he gave you
Crazy how
the
you
credit
talk
because
through
you
stuff.
didn't, because you didn't pay him right there. Essentially, that is a form of credit, because
No,
it's the good
yeah.
faith. It's just in good faith. It's not contractual credit. It's like good faith credit,
Yeah, so
So
credit and debt is intertwinable. You can't have one without the other, actually.
Yeah, and now it got me thinking, I never said those terms before, but now it's like a real difference between contractual credit and like good faith credit. And that really is a good example of like good faith credit. It's not on paper, but it's like, if you owe him that debt because he credited you on good faith and he didn't write it up, well, you guys have, like, once again, goes back to like that social connection in which you didn't need to contractually offer him credit because he's not a stranger. This guy probably cuts your grass every week. So it's like, oh, he's good for it. It's good faith. Boom. So extend him the credit. Boom. And so it's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and
we learn every day, guys.
Yeah, it makes sense when he says tangible items are accounting devices. So even though he's cutting grass, it's a service. Just look at it as like an item, like a coupon maybe. And you can say this coupon is worth this much credit or this much debt. So that helps, that just walking through that example helps me get what he meant by that a little bit more, but still super abstract though.
Yeah, it is. It's good stuff though. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So next point here. Pretty basic. Higher interest rates make saving more attractive than spending. Just like
fuck. I mean,
let me explain mine and you explain yours, because I'm interested
okay.
to see what you're gonna say. So when interest rates are higher, it makes saving more attractive because the interest that you get paid by having your checking account is higher as a general rule. Sometimes banks don't pass the yield that they're getting along, but if they want to be competitive and not have all their depositors like pull out all their money and go to like a bank that is paying that yield, it makes it more attractive. And the reason why it makes it more attractive than spending.
Real quick. So I would say that's more economic theory, for one. And for two, I think that's a scenario that plays out. And I don't think there's normal. I was going to say, I think it plays out in normal times, but I don't think there isn't any normal anymore for the most part. Now, if you look at what happened over the last interest rate hike cycle over 2022, and then you look at today's consumer spending, it doesn't seem like consumers, for the most part, which is 70% of our overall economy, it doesn't seem like the fastest, most rapid interest rate hike cycle in the history of the Federal Reserve made savings more attractive. I would argue it just made holding cash and investing into like cash equivalents more attractive, but not savings. And the reason why it doesn't incentivize savings as much as it should is because, so banks operate off of what they call net interest margin. So it's the difference from what they make from lending out money and the deposits they pay, the interest rate they pay out to the depositors. And so if you notice interest rates on bank accounts, aren't they still like less than 1% on savings accounts on average? Yeah, probably. They're probably less than 1%. And if they're not, maybe they're 1%. I don't think they're that high, to be honest. I haven't checked either. But, you know, the capital reserve requires to come into that as well. But, you know, now they're probably making, you know, 3-4% on their money that they're lending out. And now they're probably making, you know, 5-6%. And so they could afford to pay more. But because they do care about that net interest margin, which is their profitability,
0.58% APY is the national average as of October 25th, which is today.
Oh my God, look at that. As of today, the average,
banks are getting greedy, man.
Bro, the average you're getting on your savings is 0.5%. So how would that's not going to incentivize savings. A higher interest rate is not going to incentivize savings because the normal consumer that engages in banking, they actually get no benefit just because interest rates went up. It doesn't change for them. So that's more economic theory in which it's supposed to work that way. Higher interest rates are supposed to cause banks, because they're making more money on what they lend out, because their lending is more tight now, but they're making more on what they lend out, which means they can afford, theoretically, to pay their depositors more in interest on their savings, but they don't. And so, yeah, that's more economic theory versus practicality and what actually happened in terms of higher interest rates. It doesn't curb spending and it doesn't incentivize saving. I think the only way it actually curbs spending is hurting the consumer these days, like Jay Powell's trying to do now in terms of increasing unemployment. Like, the way people are going to stop spending is if they stop having an income. That's it. Just because the interest rates are higher, they're not going to be like, oh my God, I can earn now 0.58% just by putting my money in. No one gives a fuck about that shit. Nobody wants to earn 0.5% on $20,000, $10,000, fucking $800. Nobody wants to earn 0.5% on that. And so fuck saving my money just because he raised interest rates to 5.5%. Doesn't make any sense for me because the bank isn't giving me any incentive to do so, which is my conduit to the response to interest rate policy. So yeah, more economic theory on that last point.
Yeah, I agree. What I would say is, like, just to like break that down, when you deposit your money into a bank, the thing that they buy more than anything else is U.S. Treasuries. And right now, U.S. Treasuries, you can get like over 5% APR because that's what interest rates are. So basically they're pocketing that from using your money to buy it, but they're not passing that along. So what he's saying is, like, this book was written before the pandemic. I don't want to get censored.
Which is when economic theory reigns supreme, which is why we got Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke in office. But anyway.
Yeah. So it's like before then, banks would pass that along. Why they're not doing this time, there's a lot of reasons. But as a general rule, that used to be true. And it's also true if you're like a sophisticated investor. So if you understand like U.S. Treasuries and you're like, okay, let me take my money out of a savings account. I'm going to buy U.S. Treasuries and now I'm going to get that 0.5 because you're not just going to get it holding in the bank. It could be true. And also just going back to like why it would make saving more attractive or more attractive than spending when the interest rates are higher. That's also not a binary thing. It can be applied to things that you're financing. So if like right now interest rates are higher, we're seeing some of the highest delinquency rates on car loans in history because people aren't able to afford their cars because interest rates are super high. So in a time like this, people aren't buying cars, people aren't like probably buying houses, people aren't financing things because the cost to pay them on a monthly basis is so high. So you rather save than spend. But everything isn't financed. That's not true for groceries. That's not true for going out and having fun and everything. That's true for only if you're financing things, which is a small amount of things, but just bigger.
Yeah. According to Fitch, Americans that are overdue on car payments is at the highest level in 30 years. And the percentage of subprime borrowers in September increased 6.1%, which is a crazy amount in 1 month, by the way. So yeah, just to add to that point you just mentioned with the cars.
No, that's good stuff. All right, so we got a couple more points here. Anytime we find inflation in one or more sectors of our economy, as in the mortgage or other financial markets of recent decades, for example, we have positive, what is this word? Putative? Do you know that word?
What?
Putative.
Putative?
Yeah, we have positive putative investment is not being managed productively.
I don't know what putative means. I'm going to look it up. Sorry, guys. Hold on. I'm generally considered or reputed to be.
I hate when they define shit like that. The art of putative.
What was the sentence again, bro?
Anytime we find inflation in one or more sectors of our economy, as in the mortgage and other financial markets recent decades, for example, we have positive putative investment is not being managed productively, but more speculatively. The problem isn't the extra money being spent as such, it's where the money is flowing.
It's like commonly accepted. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a weird word to use there. I just want to say, authors, you could have used a different fucking word, buddies. I like your work, but you could have used a different word right there. Just being honest.
True.
I'll leave it at that.
Do we want to elaborate on this point?
I think in those times you have cheaper capital. So I like to always tie it to the real world. Like over the last decade, we had zero rates. And during that time, what got fueled was speculation in putative malinvestments. And so they were widely accepted or considered to be good investments, but they were actually malinvestments. They were bad. And the reason they seem okay is because the capital was so cheap and you can earn a yield that wasn't in line or in trend with history. It just wasn't. The problem is where the money's going. And in those cases, a lot of money, let's use 2008, for example, a lot of money went into the real estate market. I mean, exorbitant amounts in which they were lending money out to people who they literally could see on paper that this person will default. But because interest rates were so low, they were able to get them insured because they were still earning high yield on a risky investment. They were able to get them insured by the likes of AIG. Now, because AIG got so used to a low rate environment, which capital is so cheap, and in their mind, it's like housing is such a stable asset, they didn't keep enough collateral on board to be able to actually cover the losses if there was a huge downfall across the economy, which is why AIG became insolvent and they had to be nationalized. So yeah, I would say he's right. When you have money going into or piling into certain assets, which is probably going to flow most towards the same thing, whether stocks, real estate, recent history, we've seen Bitcoin, you're going to get malinvestment as a huge portion of that. And when that happens, eventually everything goes to shit in that market. So yeah, I would say I would agree in that, the problem is, yeah, it's where the money's going. And in 2008's case, it was all going towards real estate. Now money's kind of like, I would say everywhere, but I would say a lot of it's still in equities, despite what a lot of people are saying. A lot of money is still in stocks right now. Here's a quick little stat before we move on. UBS put out a study, and in 2023, 1.2 millionaires are no longer millionaires. Now in 2022, it was like 1.6 millionaires created. So most of the people who made millions or became millionaires last year, they're not millionaires anymore. And that tells me, like, damn, these people really held on to their stocks. And so there's still a lot of money in equities. And so we're going to see more downside in the equity market because I think yields are going to continue. But I've been saying this, and I don't know how I've been right on this, but I am. But yields are going to go higher in the bond market. I don't think they're going to go too much higher, but, you know, they're probably going to settle around, you know, 5.5% across the board for the most part, just because we'll probably stick there. I mean, the long end of the curve, because we're going to stick there on the Fed funds rate. It all comes down to the real rate on the Fed funds rate, which right now, if you just look at the inflation rate versus where we are, it's almost 2%, basically, about 2%. And so that's the real rate. So are we restrictive? Some people would say yes when you get to this range. And so we might hold here, which means, you know, yields are going to go higher, which means the stock market has more downside.
Yeah, so this next point is like the best thing I got from this book, and what I was talking about, how like when I thought the dollar, this made me like realize that the dollar isn't going anywhere, at least no time soon. So I'll read this point off and we'll talk about it. In all public debt crashes throughout history, there's a clear pattern. The government in default in every single case either did not issue its own money, did not borrow only or mainly in its own money, or pegged its money at some rate of exchange to something outside of itself, like gold or foreign currency. That is the only way to default, to promise directly or indirectly, or to pay what you yourself don't issue. Think about it this way. If you are in debt, let's say I'm the UK and my central bank can print Great British Pound. But let's say I owe the United States $1 billion, but I owe them that $1 billion in United States dollars. My central bank can't print United States dollars. So I have to earn US dollars to pay off that debt. I can't just print it. Now, the reason why we're in the position that we're in is because, one, we're the fucking global reserve currency, but two, like we have this huge debt and people are so worried about it. But the debt that we owe is mostly in our own currency. So we can print United States dollars and use it to pay off our own debt. And that's how we're able to sustain this giant debt bubble that we're in. So it's like the only way to like have a currency collapse or like default on your debt or anything like that is if you owe in a foreign currency and you're not the global reserve currency and it isn't as high of demand for your currency. And like when you look at the United States dollar, it's required to buy oil. U.S. treasuries are like the dominant form of collateral in the world. So like if you want to borrow money and you want to use collateral, the most used collateral is United States treasuries and a bunch of other demands for United States dollars that, you know, probably we don't have enough time to talk about on this one episode. So yeah, that really peeled the curtain back for me. Did you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so that's clip. I clipped it out of one of our older videos and I've been debating on posting it for some reason. I just haven't, but I watched it even today. You know, it's like a minute long, but it's longer than I can make into a short, but it's like still under 2 minutes. And so I'm like, basically we're talking about if the US could ever really enter a stage of default. And it's like, we can't. And that goes back to like, okay, we lost over 90% of our purchasing power. I mean, in 1 year, we lost over, like our purchasing power dropped 90%, I should say. In 1 year. That happened in 1 fucking year. Keep that in mind the whole time I'm talking. So we lost most of our purchasing power. And essentially, the only way that we could default is if every foreigner or every country that's holding US dollars got rid of our money at the same time or paid off their debts at the same time or just everybody repudiated at the same time. And
you want to define repudiated? Motherfuckers might not know what that means.
Meaning they just said, fuck you, I'm not paying, basically, but legally. And
which
it's
they
totally
won't do because we're the top military.
Right, exactly. So you could legally not pay debt. Which, man, isn't this what Germany did like back in the Weimar days? I think this is one of the routes they took. They repudiated on debt because they couldn't pay it. But I'm not sure.
I think they did renegotiate. They didn't just say fuck something.
Yeah, so essentially repudiation is saying fuck you, I'm not paying you. but in a legal fashion, like I said. So yeah, you know, it's literally not possible for us to default when everyone is holding our currency essentially. And oil is denominated in US dollars. Gold is denominated. Any important commodity that you could think of is denominated in US dollars. So there's not a possibility in this scenario in which the US dollar becomes obsolete. It just doesn't happen. Now, let me see I think his name is Brent Cooper. He talks about the dollar milkshake theory. He used to be on Real Vision a lot when they first came out. If you guys ever heard of Real Vision with Rob Paul. And when they first came out, like, I don't know, years ago, he was always on there talking about the dollar milkshake theory. And essentially, let me get this right here. Essentially, what the dollar milkshake theory says is, if our dollar continues to get stronger, which it is, if our dollar continues to get stronger, it weakens our exports and strengthens our imports. And so it becomes more expensive for other countries to buy product from us, so they stop. But it becomes less expensive for us to buy products from them. But because they're not buying product from us, let me get this right. Essentially, it causes a cycle. The dollar strengthens more, which means these other countries, relatively, they become more weak, which means it gets even more expensive. And if we can't have that foreign investment, which our dollar going up effectively slows foreign investment down, if we can't have that, the dollar milkshake theory would essentially lead to a currency default in the US dollar. But even that spiral is like, I can't really see that spiral happening, because it's like, I don't know. I think also, like, I don't know, man, it's just hard to see a default in the US dollar. It's hard to see people like, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna make an accent here, but it's hard to see them saying, yeah, I'm just not gonna use it anymore. Like, I'm just not going to. It's like almost no matter what happens, they're going to use the US dollar, unless Joe Biden came out and said, oh, okay, we're going to print 17 trillion more dollars. And you know what? It doesn't matter. The inflation, it's not real. And blah, he said some dumb shit. And, you know, and people, like, it really start to destroy even the foreigners' purchasing power. Then, you know, things would really be fucked. But other than that, I can't see it happening.
Joe Biden is trying. Okay, let me not get too far off in the weeds. It could be justified that he is trying to do things that are not in the best interest of our country and currency, and he's having a hard time. That's how strong the dollar is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's trying. He could be trying. Like, a lot of people can say that he's trying, and it's hard. And like what Lynn Alden was saying on the podcast, what's the next best option?
No, yeah, 100%. Yeah. And that's one of the things, going back to the beginning of this call, one of the reasons why I never believed that, because that's one of the questions I used to ask as well. Like, what the fuck else are we going to use? I mean, seriously, bro.
China. Even say China, but they have too many rules. People don't want to be like,
bro, when I went to
Europe, shit in China.
Yeah, no one's going to use the fucking yuan. When I went to Europe, for example, now this is just me, so it's anecdotal, I get that. But when I went to Europe, now don't get me wrong, that's my first time being in Europe. So it's kind of cool to use some euros, you know, it was cool at first. But eventually it's like, fuck, kind of keeping track of it all. Then like the coins, it was hard to understand the coins because they're not the same. So it's like, to me, the value was money differently. I mean, the money was valued differently. So I noticed I was actually spending more money in euros, and it'd be expensive. I remember paying like 15 euros for like some pizza. And it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck, bro? That's like still like $13. This is still expensive as fuck. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to use my US dollar. So when I was in London, there was like, did I use a card? It was like either a merchant processor in a store, or I had like some type of card. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but I was able to just spend my US dollars and it converted to euros automatically. But I was so much more happy to do that because I hated going to the machine, converting my currency into euros. And it did feel like I was using a weaker currency, but probably because, you know, this is all in my head, but it felt like that, you know. So it's also like a feeling, like when you see a US dollar, Bro, no, for real. But when you see a US dollar and you see a euro, bro, you're going to take the fucking US dollar, bro. 100%. You see $50 bills in a euro, and you see $50 bills in US dollars. Which pile are you going after? You only can pick one. You're going to choose the US dollars. And that's kind of how I felt when I was there. And so I would assume, maybe this is not a safe assumption, but I would assume most people feel that way, in which they would just prefer to use the US dollar because of like a subconscious imprinting on us, whatever that may be. But it's just, it reigns supreme, bro. It does. And of course, some merchants were happy to accept US dollars, even when because I still had some cash, like US cash. They were happy to accept it, even though they didn't normally accept it. But it's like, oh, okay, they'll still take it. And so, yeah, what the fuck else are you going to use?
Yeah, man, I think the only way that the US dollar can fail is, like we said, everyone come together at once. But game theory says that's not going to happen. Like, while it is in everyone else's best interest to do it, everyone has to do it at the same time. A lot of these countries are enemies. And if one person does it, they don't want to become the enemy of the US because our military. So it's like, I think the only way that a country could like steal away our global reserve currency status is if they fucking come over here with bombs and planes and like take over the government and put guns to people's heads and say, you're going to use our fucking currency. Use our fucking currency.
Yeah, no, basically. Or if China finds some way to like have success on their Belt and Road Initiative massively more than they expected. And then they start telling people
back a little bit and not being so fucking strict, because people hate that shit. You can't do shit.
Yeah, and if they opened it up a little bit, like, hey, well, I'm not gonna do an accent here. Hey, we'll get you.
I'll be nice, guys. I'll be nice this time.
Whoa, is that Chinese? That's the worst Chinese accent I ever. Oh man, it's more like, you know, you use yuan, you stop using dollar. Oh man, Chinese people.
That's pretty good, man. I give you
that. Man. Hey, I did live with a few Chinamen, and I mean women as well when I say Chinamen.
Wow, Chinamen, bro.
Is that
that's like a white person said, hey, I did live with a few niggas.
No, it's not. No, it's not, bro. Oh my God. Calling them Chinamen are not racist, bro.
Are you sure, bro?
It's not, bro. It's Chinamen. That's what they are.
Donald Trump was blaming the pandemic on the Chinamen, and everyone hated that they were saying that. So I just assumed that was racist.
No, because he was calling it the fucking China virus.
Oh,
and like what he could say, he could. Okay, you know, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how politics talk, and it's like all in the way that they literally say it. So like I was listening to this guy talk about the new Speaker of the House, and somebody brought up something that was interviewing him, and he was like, as you just said, it was something good about him. And he was like, as you mentioned, and he said that good thing again. And I was like, that was a good way to like not seem arrogant on those numbers by saying, as you mentioned, we're the largest, blah, 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 blah. And it was a way to not seem arrogant. The way Donald Trump would say it, he would say, well, look, you even said it. We're the largest, blah, blah, blah. And that still comes off as arrogant. They're saying the same exact thing, but it's like the way they say things, they could be misconstrued. So like he could say something and he can end it with Chinaman and it seems racist. But just because he said that word, it doesn't mean he's racist. It's just the way he said it. You know, it's like, it's weird. But Chinaman is not racist. He just also said China virus in the same fucking sentence.
No.
Yeah,
that was my first time hearing Chinaman ever being used, and people were offended that he said it. So maybe that's why I thought that.
Yeah, no, not racist. Hey, if you're Chinese, let me know in the comments if that's racist or not. But I don't think so, though. That's like them saying. That's like them saying, "Well, he's a black American."
I don't know about that one.
All right, let's go. Let's go, man.
Last one, and we'll end on our repudiations. Say no.
I was about to say, no, we're just not giving a fuck no more.
The public must invest carefully, just as the government must, but for a different reason. You must do so in order to earn enough to liquidate, aka pay your debt. The government must do so in order to not have to deliquidate the money supply by issuing more debt to tamper down inflation by soaking up excess money that isn't absorbed by goods and services when investment is not productive.
That was kind of a mouthful.
Yeah.
I thought he was getting at, the government not. Okay, so we as an individual, we don't want to have debt resting over our heads for our whole life. And so we generate cash to pay off, to literally like pay off our individual debts.
Well, he's
The
talking about
government,
investing, not generating that.
well, invest to pay off our debt, same thing, because you make money from your investment. So whether it's through appreciation or yield, and that helps to pay off your debt, essentially. Now, governments and even corporations, they care more about servicing the debt. And so as long as we can service the debt, we can survive forever as a whole entity, as a country. Individually, you don't want that. But if you're a corporation or you're a government, you make investments to continue to service that debt. And if you're a government, you also have the tool of taxes as well to help service that debt. But as an individual, you don't want to just service your debt. You want to pay off your debt. And companies, they want to pay off their debt, but as long as they can service their debt, they're fine. The government, they don't really want to pay off the debt. They just want to service it.
Yeah, and again, this is different for the United States government versus every other government, because even if one, like we talked about, our debt is mostly in our currency that we can print and pay off, so we don't really have to invest as responsibly, unfortunately, fortunately, whatever you want to call it. But also, like, even our foreign debt, those motherfuckers will take US dollars versus their own currency, because they can use US dollars to buy more of their currency, or they can use it to buy things that their country needs. So it's different for certain governments.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
Shall we conclude, my good brother?
Yeah, so if I had to rate that book, now keep in mind, guys, I never read this book, but just based on the information we just went over, would I read this book? Yes, I would. And I would say, I would, yeah. I don't know why. I'm like the bird. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, keep in mind, I read this at a different point in my life. Like, if I were to read this book now, I would underline completely different things, and we'd be talking about completely different things. Like, we should read Lynn Alden's book,
Broken Money. No, 100%.
Yeah,
I haven't picked it up. Yeah, still haven't picked it up yet. But yeah, I figured we'll both get through that, and then we'll get that done. And probably, you know, when I get to because I'm guys, announcement, if you're watching this still right now to the end, I will be in San Fran with your boy Vinny. And so we will be doing this podcast. Oh yeah, crypto, no, my bad. And we will be doing this podcast in person. It's going to be super fire. So yeah, why the fuck was I just even saying that? What were we just on?
Would you read the book?
Oh yeah, would I read the book? I would read it. And I figure, you know, we'll be probably doing, like, when we talk about these books, it's weird. It's like, I always want to think of another name, because they're not really book analysis. They're like more like, we're like expounding on the books. Like,
maybe.
Something like that, you know. But anyway, we'll be doing them in person, and I figure we'll probably do more relevant books to the times, or newer books from individuals who you probably see on a daily basis. You probably watch these people on podcasts or whatnot, and they're always writing books. They really are. And so we'll probably take that route. But either way, it's going to be super fire. And I'm the worst when it comes to book recommendations. I'm like the type of guy, I will really go to the store or online, depending on how I buy the books. And I'm going to sit there and like look at them. And I actually look at the table of contents. If I'm buying off Amazon, I'll look at the reviews. You know, I look at everything before I buy the book. It's very rare where I buy a book all willy-nilly, and I'll buy, 3, 4 at a time, and I'll go through each one of them to make sure it's like really relevant to my situation or my life. Because if it's not, I probably won't retain the information as much. I probably won't like it. And if I don't retain the information, it does me no good. Not saying I'm not going to read this, but I just noticed that about myself. It's like, when it comes to book recommendations, it's like I have to go deep in that book, or you got to give me a lot of information in that book for me to read it. This one, we just went through it, so I know I would actually read it. But yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I would say I'll read it again, but it's a lot more finance books I got to go through, so I won't. But I definitely recommend it, whether if you're an expert or just kind of getting your feet wet. And if you're getting your feet wet, you might have to look up stuff, which is good. You always want to be looking stuff up. Don't just like read past stuff and not understand, because like, what's the fucking point? But yeah, this book was a big it helped me grow a lot in terms of my financial knowledge. I will say that.
Yeah, I think it's I hate using the term financial literacy. I really do, because I'm gonna just be real. As a black man, that means too much to us now. In that, oh, we don't know shit, and so we have to learn. It's like
You
it
got to get your
became,
credit fixed and get you a
yeah,
LLC.
that's what it's become. It's become like trying to teach you to use a credit card and never pay off that debt, for example. Like that's not really a good practice. Trying to teach you to go get a loan from a bank for a specific purpose and then using it for something else, and then using like some 90-day clause in which if you don't use it, it becomes like a free, you can use it for whatever you want. Like, I don't know, weird stuff like that. That's what it's become, like weird like that. And it's not going towards economics and money, which is literally at the basis of everything. Any problem you can think of in the world, the center of that is money. Any social connection that you have is probably made through some type of commerce or potential commerce. Like it's actually not as common to just walk outside and you meet someone who you keep that relationship with out of pure nothingness. That just doesn't happen. You probably kept that relationship because of some potential commerce, whether now or down the line. And it probably morphed into just friends and you being nothing. But if you didn't meet that person in high school, it's very rare that you're going to have that. Everyone you meet, commerce will be at the middle of it. And so, it's important to learn about economics, money, economic theory, economic practicalities. It's important to know these things. It's important to know what's going on, different economic tools, because that will help inform your investment decision. And you will learn all the nuanced things as you go along. But it's important to have some type of foundation so you could think in your framework and not have somebody like, I always reference Earn Your Leisure, because they always have those guys on there. They're very basic, but they'll plant a narrative in your head, because usually most of the people watching them, they're trying to learn. And so now they're looking at them as the experts. And so now their entire basis on finance and economics will be fucking credit card utilization or something like that. It's like, bro, that's not enough. Like you need to go out and have a solid framework. And it's not easy. You're not going to learn it from one podcast, two podcasts. Like, this shit takes years to learn. Just for the record, I've been studying the economy and the Federal Reserve since, and I want to try to nail the year. This year is 2023. I was 22 years old. And so that was, how old was I in 22? We were in San Diego. So that was 2015.
You were studying the Federal Reserve in 2015, bro?
Yes. In
Why didn't we ever talk about it?
Because I didn't know how to talk about it. Literally, I didn't know how to talk. And I wouldn't even say studying it. I would say trying to learn about it. That's when I started. And so I started watching things. Yeah, when I was at Smart Circle, when I was selling makeup. So it just all started after I met that guy, random guy in the parking lot. I was selling him makeup. And then he was like, "See you soon, James," at the end, when he told me to read The Secret. And that's literally when it all started, right there, 100%. And I started reading my second book I ever read, actual hard copy, was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And during that same time is when I started going deep on business, finance, economics. And that's when I started the Chalk Vault, when I got to the Bay. So yeah, that was like the short arc right there. So we're going on fucking 8 years is the point in which I've been studying finance and economics. And it's like, bro, it never ends. And somebody who's been in the game for 25, 30 years, they'll tell you the same thing. They're probably still learning, even though they know a fuck ton. They're probably an arrogant fucker. They're still learning on a daily basis, because it's ever changing, and it's almost as complex as the human body. Jesus Christ, it is very complex. So study.
Good stuff.
Take
Good
your
stuff.
time.
Yeah, nothing to add to that. Subscribe to Know What Else. Visit knowwhatelse.xyz to purchase our courses. We teach you how to yield farm, generate passive income, how to not get hacked in DeFi, how to do technical analysis so you know how to bust open a chart and know what the fuck it's saying, and how to manage a multi-asset portfolio like a professional through hedging everything with options. There's a lot of billionaires, Mark Cuban included. We'll be on the lookout for that video. He had a co-founder that lost billions of dollars. Mark Cuban didn't, because he hedged his portfolio with options. So we teach you how to do all that stuff and invest just like an institution. Subscribe to Know What Else. Subscribe to Crypto Noah, which is my channel, my personal channel. I talk about crypto, DeFi. I have my day in the life vlogs on there showing me building a company, hanging out with friends, doing a bunch of fun shit, and subscribe to Jay Mansion as well. He talks about
Yeah, we talk about pretty much everything finance and economics. And I do want to add, I'm going to start employing what you do on the vlog side. I've been wanting to, but I've been kind of slacking.
Hey.
But as I go on these journeys on this bike that I just got, hey, you know what? I'm just going to say what it is, because people probably gonna give me shit for it until they see it in person. It's a Yamaha Majesty. Look that up if you don't know what it is. Maybe we can pop a picture on here. Bow. Anyway, I'm going to be taking this thing right here around pretty much the country, the west side of the country, to be honest. I'm not going Midwest or East, but the west side of the country. And yeah, I fight as well. And so I'll be maybe doing some MMA content as well. So it'll be, finance, MMA, travel, and just my overall life. For the most part, it's going to be finance and economics, though, because that is the center of everything. Once again, on my trip that I go on, the center of that trip will be money. If I only had $100 to travel with, that's going to change the entire trajectory of the trip. Just to put that in perspective. So learn about money, guys, and subscribe to all our shit.
Yes, sir. I thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all on the next one.